Hi, I'm Deb Peterson, and this is a Balance Your Life podcast, where we're going deeper into spirituality. And I'm with my co-host,
Di Valente.
And we're really excited to take a deeper dive. And we're here with Jill Kelly today. She's our guest.
Hello.
Nice. Thanks for being with us.
Of course.
So, Jill, tell us a little bit about what you do.
All right. So I am a psychic medium, and I am what I call a psychic Reiki master. Everybody's heard about Reiki, and there's all different flavors of Reiki, but I use my psychic ability to guide me through a Reiki session so I can release energy and help you raise your vibration and clear yourself of things that no longer serve you. So, yeah.
So, Jill, you can do that from a distance also?
Yeah, I actually have clients in Australia, Croatia. I laugh with a woman from Australia because she's literally like in the future at the moment because it's the next day.
Oh, right.
But I use a proxy, and I use, like, it's actually a teddy bear that's really big, and I use my hands and I guide I see them on the Zoom screen and I guide. And the first time I ever did it, it was with my cousin in upstate New York, and I kept going to his right shoulder, and I kept feeling, I feel like a magnetic pull from my hands. So I kept going to his right shoulder, and afterwards I'm like, so I did go to your right shoulder a lot. And he goes, oh my goodness, Jill. And I was like, what? He's like, I didn't say anything because I didn't want to like skew the reading or whatever. He's like, but I've been getting cortisone shots in my right shoulder for 3 years. And he was on the Zoom screen. He goes, and look, and he did this. Wow. And he was like, I couldn't do that before you worked on me. And so he's like my biggest fan. Yeah, he's like my biggest fan. He's like, oh my God. And that was the first time I ever did it. I didn't know. I was skeptical. I was like, this isn't going to work. And when
energy travels. Like, let's just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, my favorite saying is energy has no geography.
That's right.
That's my blanket
And it's
statement.
funny that you do it on a teddy bear. I mean, it's cool. I've never heard that from anyone. Right?
No, I haven't heard it.
Yeah, he's got elbows and knees, so I just guide and wherever I feel drawn to is where I go to, give the energy. So yeah, it's kind of wild. It still blows my mind. People can get such a benefit from it. But yeah, it goes over distance, which is really neat.
Now, I would be careful telling people that in Croatia insist on having to go there.
Right?
But,
Yeah, no, I have clients all over the world, which is really, really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you just started that part of your practice recently.
Yes. In the during COVID, I wanted to learn something new. So I was reading these books, and I started reading about Reiki, and I found a book called The Art of Psychic Reiki, and I'm like, cool, psychics can do this, it's a thing. And then I met my mentor, and she had me go through an academy with 13 other women, and the whole point of it was to quit your day job and do this full time. So I went through this whole program and learned Reiki, and I got my master level from her. Beautiful. And came home from the master level training in Massachusetts and opened my business, and it just blew up. Wow. So
meant to be.
It was meant to be.
Yeah.
When you work with people now, are you teaching Reiki?
I also, yes, actually. So I teach all 3 levels of Reiki. The master level is level 3, and then I go a little bit further to teach master teacher, to teach people how to teach. Because I am a teacher at heart. I was actually a teacher for 20 years before I started all this psychic stuff.
And before that.
Yes, I was always teaching.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So when we talked a little bit, you shared some of the experiences you have in life. And I think it's so fascinating because you started having these experiences very young.
I did, yes.
So you want to just talk about some of the experiences that you've had, like even just telling that story, because that just blew me away.
I did hear it, so that's good.
Well, even before that, if you could just tell our audience when you were little.
When I was little, I was always outside. I was like singing to the flowers because it would make them brighter. I could see energy around animals. I could see energy around people. Okay. And I would, be outside, and my mom would watch me, and she'd watch me talking, and she'd be like, who are you talking to? Because I was like, had a focus, and I'm like, oh, that's, so-and-so. And she's like that's her, that's Sarah. And she's like, well, tell me about Sarah. And she knew that I was very sensitive, and she knew that she always called me an old soul. So when she saw me swinging on the swing, like I talked about, and the swing was swinging next to me, and I was talking to the swing that was swinging next to me, and I wasn't pushing the swing that was next to me, my mom was like, oh, wow, okay, so we're just going to go with this. And so she was my mama bear throughout my childhood, and so many children, and I worked with children. So many children get shut down.
Yes.
Yeah.
And actually, my mom was shut down. So my mom had the ability.
That I wanted to ask if it was something that your mom had experienced, and thank goodness that she recognized that, because sidebar for a second, you weren't just communicating with people. The spirits that were coming to visit you and the souls that were around you were moving things.
Yes.
Like, that is a lot. And that's...
Well, right, but that's what they do, right? Let's talk about that. They move the energy to give you a message or let you know that they're there.
Yeah,
right?
like we would lose our keys all the time. The remote would go missing. Like, things would happen. And my
lights flicker.
Lights totally flickering.
Yeah.
At one point, I was reading for somebody in her house, and the laundry started beeping really, really loud. And I was like, and I was reading for her father, and I was just like, did he work in the laundry business? And she's like, no. And I was like, could you look into that? And so she called me the next day, and she said he used to deliver laundry for his father in New York City in the 1930s.
Oh, wow.
And so he was making the laundry machine go off while I was talking about him, because he was like, I'm here. So that was really neat.
It's amazing how they come through and they give you signals, and sometimes you're decoding what's going on.
Right. And it's hard because it's like a game of charades sometimes.
Right. They're not speaking English to you.
No, they're not. They're kind of showing me things. They're giving me thoughts. Sometimes I do get like a direct quote, like tell her, like one beautiful one I had the other day. All the things you loved about me, please be that for everyone who's still with you.
Oh, wow. That's a big message.
So I was like, I'm just going to write that down. And, because to me, that was spirit speaking through me. Yeah.
And you heard those exact words.
Yeah.
So
very cool.
So I had an experience where Jill gave me a reading, and you were just on point, and I'm open and I'm listening, and you're telling me about a truck, and you're telling me about food business and logos, and I am not connecting this at all. Meanwhile, my entire life, Sal, who is my ex-husband, had a business with food, and he would deliver gourmet food to restaurants.
And he has a truck.
But the logo on it.
And spirit was coming through that, throwing everything at me. A charcuterie board, you need more protein. And I'm like,
that happens to people. We should talk about that though, just a little bit, because that happens to people. And so, and I've seen people that, they're very skeptical. I could talk. Yes. And they're not hearing what it is, because it's also your perception, right? And sometimes when you walk away from the reading later, you're like,
oh yeah, you get the. So I have a story about that. Yeah. So I was doing a gallery event, and I was reading for different people.
Right.
It was a bunch of people in a room, and I got to this woman, and I'm telling her about her mother-in-law, and she's pregnant, so she wanted to hear what she had to say. And the last thing she said to me in the reading was green dress. And she's like, well, she wore a lot of dresses, but I'm not sure what she means about the green dress. And then I moved on to the next person. She's like, I'll just write that down, because I tell people sometimes it makes sense later. Just write it down.
Right.
Exactly what happened.
Absolutely.
So I did a couple more readings that night, and she came up to me and she was like, can I share with everybody about the green dress? Because it occurred to me. And I was like, sure. And she goes, a month after my mother-in-law died, I was invited to a wedding where you could either wear green or orange. And she's like, so I was online looking for a green satin dress, and I told her it was like a glamorous dress that was skin tight all the way down. And she's like, and I found that dress. And she goes, and when I went to check out, the name of the dress was the name of my mother.
Oh, that's wild.
And so she's like, so that was a little sign from her, like, I'm still watching for you.
And that is something where it doesn't seem like maybe this huge thing, but it is something that you can't make up.
Right, you can't make
up. And that woman probably was the only person who knew that, right?
Exactly.
And that is, so that's your proof.
And I think that that's something we should talk about. Sure. Because Jill, you work with people. We'll talk a little bit more about how, what your experience has been and why you're helping people, but just for our audience to learn to pay attention to those little signs.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere, right? And they happen all the time. And if you are open to them, then you can further develop your own connection.
Exactly. I tell people all the time, you don't need a medium to connect. Like, you can wake up in the morning and be like, and put out something crazy. Like this woman told me after a reading, she goes, well, I'm going to ask for a blue heron. And I'm like, you live on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. Like, you're going to get a blue heron.
That's pretty.
And she's like, I'm getting a blue heron. And I'm like, all right. So 2 days later, she calls me, and she's like, I went into the doctor's office. There was this painting of a blue heron. And I was like, okay. Yeah. There it is.
So
like,
you were skeptical.
I was skeptical. I was like, there's no way. And then and then I have other friends that have gotten signs. I was a friend of mine was ending a relationship, and she was driving away, And she looked in front of her and she took a picture of it, and it was a bumper sticker that said "The End." And she was like, I guess that's just the universe validating that the fact that this relationship is over.
Yeah. Oh, that happens all the time. If you ask for a sign, I mean, you really, I haven't been doing it so much lately, but I always try to ask for a sign. I would ask the angels for a sign before I go to sleep.
Oh.
So that, well, someone told me to do that. It's not like I made that up.
Right.
But I don't remember who it was. But I asked for a clear sign because sometimes I'm a little thick and I don't get them. And then if I do that, I mean, sure as you know what, I get an answer in the morning. It's like crazy, and it amazes me how clear it is.
Yeah, and then our conversations typically are with, well, that's a sign.
Right.
You got to pay attention.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, my sister always makes fun of me. She's like, you get the signy signs.
Yeah.
She's like, we all get like the okay signs, like, ooh, a feather. She's like, you get this, like, so I have a little story about that, about like synchronicity. Synchronicity is when two things happen with no causal connection, but for some reason they connect.
Yeah.
So I was a preschool teacher, read books to my kids. I went on a vacation with a little girl that was now 8, and I was her preschool teacher when she was 3. And on this vacation, she came up to me. She had gone to a book fair, bought the book I used to read to her called A Rainbow of My Very Own.
Oh, boy.
And she read it to me that Sunday. And she's like, I wanted to read you this because you would always read it to me.
Aww.
And so I was like crying.
Yeah.
And then I held on to the book. And in the book, she wrote with a Sharpie with, little kid's handwriting, I love you to the moon, Miss Jill.
No.
And so I was like, this book is never going away. So I went back to teaching and the book got lost. And I was like, so I didn't know where it was. And I switched rooms a couple years later. And so this was like a few years later. And I looked in the cabinet for a book and I'm like, oh, look, it's the book that I love. And I opened it up and it was Molly's book. Oh. And so I was like, I have to talk to her mom because her mom knew I lost the book. Like, she's like, well, I can have her buy another one and write the same thing. I'm like, no, it has to be that book. So I'm looking at this book. I'm like, this is the book. And so I like literally grabbed my phone. It was at the end of the day and call her mom. And she's like, oh my God, Jill, today's her 10th birthday. And she was talking about you this morning.
Of course.
And I was like,
that's wild. Yeah.
Okay.
Synchronicities.
Synchronicities. So like those things can happen, and they can happen to anyone. You don't have to be a psychic medium to have those things.
No, I think people have them all the time. And again, it's about paying attention.
Yeah. Right. Paying attention. Don't keeping your eyes open.
All right.
So you as a psychic, like, what do you think is happening there that we don't, like, we're like, okay, so they're lining things up for us. Do you have any other take on what's going on behind the scenes? Are they just having a great time?
I feel sometimes they are having a great time. Like my cousin's spirit likes to turn off the animatronic toys in his brother's kids' playroom. Like at 3 a.m, he'll just like turn them on and they start talking. And he's like, all right, I see you. I hear you. I get it. You're here. So to me, like sometimes they are having a really good time kind of messing with us. But I also feel like we are the masters of our own destiny, like you were saying. And we sometimes, like, I feel like they're watching over us, and I feel like the angels are watching over us, and everybody has their own spirit team. Mm-hmm. Everybody has spirits that have been with them since they were little. And it's just sometimes they're waiting. They're like, is she ever going to ask for permission for us to help her? Because they stand by, but they can't intervene, right? Is it like kind of like have to ask permission for the angels to come through for your?
Yeah, well, I know about the angels, right? It's free will,
and so sometimes things happen with my clients where I say to them like, okay, your dad's going to speak to you through music. Like a lot of times they tell me what they're going to do. And so I said to this woman, she was talking about how her throat was blocked and she was on my table as a Reiki practitioner, me as a Reiki person, and I was clearing her throat, and her dad's spirit, I kept hearing him say, tell her to speak up, tell her to speak up. And so she went in her car after she had my session and she texted me from the car, and the song Brave by Sarah Bareilles was playing on the radio. And that song is all about speaking your truth and being brave and speaking up. And she's like, I got full body chills and I knew that was my dad.
That's awesome.
So like, I feel like in the spirit world, they're trying to help us all the time. And I explained to this young man about his grandfather kind of like guiding him. So I was like, so make believe you're like going to make a right and you just decide, something tells you not to and you go left and then you find out later there was an accident. And so he looked at me and he goes, so my grandfather is a ways up in my head.
Yeah.
And I was like,
okay.
Yeah, sure. Kind of.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just going to share a quick story about music because it just hit me when you said this.
Right.
My very dear friend who was born the same day as me passed away a couple of years ago. And after we went to her memorial, her kids are my daughter's age. She has twins, and they're triplets. My friend Chrissy would always call them triplets. And I loved her. And she was sick. And we were always trying to work with her to heal who she was. And anyway, I get in my car and I turn the radio on, and a song from the late 70s or early 80s comes on. I Have a New Attitude, Patti LaBelle. Oh, wow. And I stop, and in my mind, I'm watching Chrissy singing this song, and I'm like, holy cow. And now, it was so much fun, but now whenever I hear that song, I cry. Because I can see her, and it was so perfect. Saying it. So, I love receiving things like that.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing.
It really is.
So there have been other experiences again, because you're intuitive since you're 3 years old, and you've experienced things way beyond this.
Right.
Why don't you share some of those experiences that you've seen?
Sure. So,
put you on the spot a little.
Put me on the spot a little bit. Well, when I was a teenager, it was really kind of almost getting out of control. And I didn't know how to set spiritual boundaries. I didn't know how to cleanse. I didn't know how to get rid of things that I was seeing. So there was this one night where my parents were having a party. And so we moved into this house. We built it on a property that's really, really old. And when we first moved in, when I was 14, this little girl spirit came forward, and she was just there. And I was like, okay. And then I saw her as like 5-year-old. And then a couple of months passed, and then I would see her, but she'd be older. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And I did some research that like there was a fire on the property, and the youngest of 3 girls, which I am, passed away in this fire. So she would show up. And so I was like, okay, I know who she is. Like, we did the research. Yeah, we did the research and everything. And I didn't realize I kept seeing her when I was with my high school sweetheart when he was over. And so this night we had this cocktail party, and he was with me. And I was wearing nylons, which is like not even a thing anymore. And I walked into the kitchen, and I slipped and I hit my head. Ooh. And so he picked me up, and he brought me to the guest room, and he kind of called my sister and my mom. And I was a little bit drunk, so I was a little bit out of like sorts. And I remember laying on the bed, and I had my eyes open, and I was screaming on the inside, and I couldn't make a sound. And I felt like something just took over. And I was like, what is going on? And I got so scared. And my mom is like shaking me, like, are you okay? And then I felt a presence. And then my mom was looking at me, and we were talking about this last night actually. And she's like, I'll never forget it. My eyes are like an olive green. She said they turned turquoise blue, and my face changed. And so my boyfriend's standing over me, and I'm seeing him as a different face with like longer hair. And I'm like, what is happening right now? And then out of nowhere, I get jolted out of it. And she's like, and my mom's like, and your face just changed again. Like, and so I was like, was that a possession? Like, what was that? Like, what the hell was that? And so I did some research, and I was just like, okay, sometimes I would see Sarah with a boy on the property. Like, I'd see her with a spirit, and I like started putting 2 and 2 together. And I found out, I'm like, she thinks my boyfriend is this long lost love that she never got to be with.
Wow.
And she's here. And so I had to literally tell her it's not him. Like, you need to go to the light, and it's not him. And so I did this whole, I know you're getting the chill.
Yeah, me too.
So
it's crazy.
I like researched it, and I looked it up and found out like it was just a crazy thing. And I wound up crossing her over. So I lit all these candles, and I had the intention. I said, he's waiting for you on the other side. Go to the light. You can leave here, because she was haunting the property. She was here. She was just kind of, and so I remember she walked out into the backyard while I was doing the ceremony outside. And then she turned around, and she went like this, and then she disappeared.
Ooh,
yeah,
that's so I mean, you hear about right?
But she was like, and then like years and years passed. My parents still live there, and I brought a friend over to my parents' house, and my friend was psychic, and she's a medium as well. And she's like, I don't know if you're going to be receptive to this. She's like, but there's a young woman here.
No.
And I was like, I crossed her over. And she's like, no. She's saying she misses you and thank you.
Oh.
And I was like, okay. Oh, okay.
So she popped back.
She just popped back in to be like, hey, what's up? And then like went away. But yeah, it's just like, but that's the thing. Like, I would see these things. I would go to people's houses. I would feel spirits and stuff. And then I would do the research. And I would be like, okay, who was here and who passed away and why are they talking to me? And like, what messages do they have? Yeah.
So can that happen to someone who's unknowing? Like, can a spirit kind of take over someone who is unknowing, or is it just because you were such an open channel?
I think there was several things playing that night. I feel like I was an open channel. I was curious, so curiosity could really invite a lot in. And I had my inhibitions down because I was a little bit intoxicated, and I wanted to know why she was trying to come to me. So I kind of like, it's like almost like, inviting the vampire over the threshold. So it's just, it was a combination of things. I don't think it happens to people all the time. I don't think it even happens to most people, but it just happened to me that time. And I knew after that, I'm like, never again. Yeah. So like, I always make sure I, basically like cleanse, and I do things, and I release, and I do my own energy work to not take on those scary, dark sometimes stuff. So
not that she was scary and dark, but just in general. Right? You have to have balance. I mean, we have to have boundaries. People. Yeah. And how do you do that? How do people set that up?
She was such a young person, open, going through.
Right. That's what I mean. That's hard to not.
So, I mean.
No, we hear this. It's very common with a lot of people that when they're, have the abilities when they're young, which most of you do, it seems like,
I mean, and my mom
don't know how to work with it.
My mom had the ability, and she was born in the 50s, and my grandmother, who was very intuitive, had to shut it down. Because she's going to Catholic school, and this is not something that we want to broadcast to all of her friends, that she can see her dead grandfather in the backyard.
What is the balance that you can recommend? Because right now the kids are coming in totally open.
Right.
And it's amazing and it's beautiful. But what can you recommend to parents to work with kids in a way that's balanced?
I feel like listening to them, not dismissing them. Right. If they're scared, sit with them. Like I was a nanny. I was a certified nursing assistant. I remember having these things, and I remember even if it's just, I had this little girl. She was having night terrors, and her mother's like, I know something's in the house. I know something's happening. I want to protect her when she sleeps. So I took salt, and then I went to Michael's, and I bought like the pixie dust, like the fine glitter. And she was 3. And so I very much related to her. And I said, okay, we're going to make a potion, and we're going to put it around your bed, and we're going to protect you. And like everybody knows, like salt is protective, right? Yes. But I wanted to make it fun for her. So I like put all these things together, and then like the big glitter and the little glitter. And I'm like, this is fairy dust, and the fairies are going to make sure you're okay when you sleep. And we put it in a circle around her bed together, and she was laughing, and we were singing a little song, and I was like singing a prayer, but as a song. So it was kind of like my way of, helping. Yeah. And her mother said right after that, she slept through the night, and like they were suffering with this for like 6 months.
Well, you also set the expectation, right? Because you changed her expectation of what she was going to experience, which was beautiful both ways.
Yeah.
Right. So that's
it's sad. I'm sure this happens it's kind of commonplace, right? And it's and all the people that don't know about it, and they don't know what to do.
Right.
It's kind of that's what's scary about it.
Yeah. And I've talked to other friends, people that the other healers, and we're like, we need to write a book about psychic kids. Like,
oh yeah,
it's like I was a psychic kid, and the woman I was talking with, she was a psychic kid that got shut down, and then the other woman I was talking with had psychic kids. So it was like all these different perspectives. So I feel like that's going to be in the works soon.
Okay, good.
And you already have a book out.
I do, yeah. So this is kind of funny. I was really nervous about writing a book and talking about this stuff. I was talking about paranormal. I was talking about a little bit of things with mental illness in my family. And it was poetry and short stories. One of the stories is the possession story I just told. Okay. And it's called It Wasn't Me. And so all these things that I would talk about, my dad would always be like, maybe you should keep that to yourself. And I'd be like, I don't want to keep that to myself. Like, I want people to know. So when I was thinking of a title for the book, I was like, things I should keep to myself.
I love it.
Oh my God.
So
I researched the title. No one had ever had that title, and I thought that was bananas. So I was just like, this is going to be my title. And on the cover, there's a girl doing this. And so I released the book. I knew it wasn't going to be a bestseller, but it got released, and it has all these reviews. And one of the best reviews I think was like, I'm so glad she didn't keep this to herself, because it's like,
that was great.
Even if you helped one person, which I'm sure you helped many.
Right.
Think about it.
And I thought like the preschool, I was teaching it at preschool. Like parents are going to think I'm crazy if they get wind of
this. Honestly, it's the teachers should be required.
Listen, I work with kids too. I'm at summer camp, and I'm with tons of kids, and it's the same thing. And it's just gently helping them believe in themselves, find their purpose, feel comfortable, and but.
Like I said, like you said, there's one person one person that makes a difference.
That's
one
right.
person that emails you and be like, oh my God, this poem or this story really resonated with me. Like that to me is the worth, it's priceless.
Especially like we know these kids are coming in a lot more. And they're really,
And I think all that training that you went to when you had closed off for a little while as a preschool teacher, besides it being the natural flow of things, was really, really important for the work that you're going to do.
Yeah. And kids are so in the now. They're so right now.
Yeah.
And so like I loved going to work and being a preschool teacher because I was like, all right, they don't care about 5 minutes so and they don't care about 5 minutes from now, and you take my toy, I'm gonna hit you with a train. And like that, you have to be right there all the time. So it would bring me out of the clouds.
Yes.
And like be in the now.
I could not agree more.
Yeah.
I could not agree more.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what is happening. They don't care.
No.
You know, they have your attention. They're there and you're there with them.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
beautiful anchoring and brings us to where we should be.
Yeah. And kids are so grounding. Like they really are.
Yes.
So
Yeah. Did we talk about any tips that maybe we could tell parents that have kids that are,
I feel like listen to them, ask them about the details. Because sometimes they can go into it a little bit. And I do have, if there's something that you can say, I was taught, I wasn't brought up with religion really, but someone when I was little taught me the Lord's Prayer. And I think it might have been my grandmother. And there's this part of that prayer where it's forgive those who trespass against us.
Yes.
And that's when kids are scared and they're in their room, that spirit is trespassing and they are not allowed. So my grandmother would be like, say it right before you go to sleep and just say, then when you get to that point, it's almost like the crucifix you hold up to the vampire. If you don't believe in it, then it's not going to work. Right. So I'd be like to the point of like, and forgive those who trespass against us. And I swear to God, all of a sudden my room would just go, and they were like,
really?
So yeah, so that was something, but there's something called the white prayer in Native American cultures. There's all these different types of prayers like that. So I like, even if it's just saying what you're grateful for at the end of the day or affirmations or saying things like, I am safe, I am protected, I am loved, and I am grounded, like little things before you go to bed, and just make sure that they feel safe and they feel heard.
And they can also, I learned this from a healer years ago, like one of the first things when my kids were little, just to bubble yourself up. Ask the angels to bubble you up.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I used to bubble them up. I still do that. I still bubble them up.
I mean, just picturing a barrier.
Right. I bubble up the car. I
do that on planes. I'm like, all right, angels, bubble the plane. Make sure nothing comes out.
Right. And it becomes second nature.
Yeah.
You can bubble anything.
Yeah.
And we should all be bubbling. We should be bubbling. Everybody's
Exactly. Right. And like you can set the intention and you do picture this force field around you.
Absolutely.
Nothing can come through without my permission.
That's it.
Nothing can come through without my permission. Like setting that intention when you bubble up, huge.
Absolutely huge. Yes. So
That's great.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about? Minutes left.
I just that everyone can connect. I do have one thing that I always tell my clients. So we can close with this. So when I was about 15 years ago, I did a reading, and the man that came through said, "Light a candle in my name, and I will answer to your flame." Oh. And he told me that's the one thing every religion got right, was lighting a candle for the dead. So I tell people, like after a reading with me, or even if there isn't a reading with me, like go home tonight, light a candle for your loved one. They will immediately be drawn to the flame. You don't have to go to the graveyard. You don't have to go to where the ashes were scattered. Just light a little, it could be a tea light, a birthday candle, anything. Light the candle and just breathe and just thank them and have that gratitude for them that they're watching over you. And sometimes I tell people, like, start writing if you want, like write a letter to them, tell them how much you miss them. But that way of connecting, anyone can do it. And that's great. And so people
universal.
It's in every religion, whether it's an altar or a candle in church or the yurtsite candle in Judaism. Like lighting a candle is a beautiful way to connect yourself and just feel that calmness.
That sounds like very nice. I like it. I love it.
Angela, thank you for being with us today. This has been great.
It's great to talk to you.
Yeah,
it really is. This is and you're fascinating. So thank you for everything you're doing.
Of course, of course. I'm just trying to heal as many people as I can, right? And just connect to spirit as much as I can, and being a clean channel for that to happen. So.
Yes. And one more thing before you go, you turn it on and off?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I have office hours. Like,
okay.
If I will read the guest list in the morning when I wake up. And all of a sudden Aunt Sarah will be sitting on the end of my bed like, I want to talk to April. And I'm like, you need to wait till 3:00 when April comes in. Like, I need to drink my coffee. Like, so I've had that happen.
So
like I have you have to have boundaries with spirits because they will be with you all the time.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, she can see us. Let's go. And I'm like, not right now.
We have a friend of ours who's quite famous and does things all over the world, and she's a medium, and she tells us that before she has a big show, she has a few of them a year, they all start trying to wake her up in the middle for like a week before. She goes, I get no sleep. My husband gets no sleep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The lights flicker. Things
She said it's like,
it's just nuts.
and it's every time. And she's been doing this for, I don't know, 30, 40 years now. I mean, so she said it's a lot. And she tells them, not yet. Yeah. I'll talk to you on Saturday.
Exactly.
Or whatever.
Like they have no concept of time.
Right. And they just really want to get their messages out to people, right?
Yeah. Like I literally almost like when I see spirit, because I do see them, it's like I'm about to do a reading and like I'll watch a spirit like cut people in line and like push and like I want to talk first. And it's just wild. They're just like, okay, you don't have to be that pushy. Like, everybody gets a chance to talk.
And is it like if they had a pushy personality
totally in that.
Then they're like that the same way.
Of course.
Interesting.
Yeah. And when they show themselves, like they can bring their vanity with them. They can show themselves at 30, even though they died at 90. So
yeah, I read that once. I read that. I know we're supposed to be wrapping up, but just one more. I remember that I read some book that said people are, spirit. They become 30.
Right.
Is that a thing? Is that real?
I mean, they like to show up. Sometimes I see grandparents how they looked on their wedding day. Sometimes I'll see a lot of like grandfathers show up in their uniform when they were 19 and went to war.
So it can be confusing if you're trying to identify. Right. Is that your father or your...
And they're like, oh no, they died when I was 90. And they're like, yeah, but he's showing up this way. But anyway, so yes. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Awesome. But then I wonder why they said that they kind of are eternally young, or... Do they ever show up like older?
They'll show me slides, or like I call them slides in my mind. They show me pictures of when they were dying. So they'll be like, yeah. So yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
No, I mean we could go on and on.
I know, right?
I should probably have you back again. Oh, but well, you know what? I will say this: that our guests are starting to hear this, and I think really starting to realize that they're always with us.
Mm.
Oh yeah,
it's not. There's no time, and they're always with us, and they're here.
Right.
It's so comforting. I mean,
really
for me anyway.
Yeah. It really is.
Comforting. Yeah,
it is. It's closure.
So people shouldn't be afraid.
People should not be afraid.
No.
And if you have the intention to only let the light in, then only the light will come in. So
that's important. Keep that going.
Yeah.
The light.
Just keep that going. And choosing the light every day is not an easy thing for us humans to do. Mm-hmm. And so like making sure that we're always trying to strive to be better or do better, or even just be a listener and a helper, no matter what type of job you have or where you're in,
right?
Just listen and try to be a helper. That's like my main message.
That's a good message. Thank you, Jill. That's amazing message. All right. Well, thanks again for being with us.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay. Thanks everybody for watching today.